is a voice crying in the wilderness. Well, I thought I'd like to talk about something that feel that is most important, and that's basically Thanksgiving. I don't necessarily have a verse that I could quote from the Bible, and I know I was looking for many verses, but I couldn't necessarily find anything that suited because there's just so many verses that are in the Bible. But I just wanted to make this statement as I know that Thanksgiving is next week, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to let everybody know that there's a lot of things in our country that we need to be thankful for, despite the challenges that we have in our nation, and despite the problems that we have. There's a lot of things that we should be thankful for about being in this country, and that we seem to have a lot of advantages here in America that most people don't have around the world. And, speaking, there's been a lot of talk about privilege and white privilege. I don't know what you would call it, but I think that regardless of who we are, whether we're white, black, or brown, I think we all are privileged in a way to live in this great country that we live in, where we have access to food and we have access to medicine. And I just would like to kind of give you kind of an example of some of the advantages, or just try to explain to you what most people around the world don't have. Just take a country like Mozambique or Uganda, and I'll just give you a prime example. What do those people live like? What is their Thanksgiving like? Well, I just had a what we call a little experience today at our church, and it is called Walk in Their Shoes, and it's just a little experiment we did at our church for Thanksgiving. It just kind of gives you kind of an experience about how other people around the world live. So, for example, if you live in let's say you live in a country like South Africa or Uganda or Mozambique, you have this guy, and he might be in his 40s, and he's got all of these mouths to feed. And guess what? He makes less than he makes less. You live on less than $1 a day. You might have about 3 or 4 kids to feed, and many of your children are very sick or they're malnourished. And so just try to take a look at this example. You make less than $1 a day, and and all you do all day, it's sort of like living in the Stone Age. And what you do is you weave baskets all day, and you're lucky if you get to sell one basket of these woven baskets that you have to sell, and you got to sell it for you might be lucky if you sell one at a quarter. And you got all these things you got to do. You got to feed your family. You might have about maybe 5 or 6 children that you have to feed, and they're going to be lucky if they get maybe one meal a day. And what is that meal going to consist of? Well, it might consist of maybe just black beans and some rice, or rice and milk, or whatever that may be. And it's not going to be free. It might cost you a little over $1 just to feed it, but it might be just enough to feed your whole family just for one day. And then the other thing is, you also need health care. You're sick. You might not have access to clean drinking water. You might drink dirty water. You might drink poisoned food. You might live in a shack or a mud hut, and you're and then and you're and it might and they might have a rainstorm and your house might be destroyed. So, and then there's loads and loads of people to feed. And the thing is there's no health care. There's no stimulus checks like we have here in America, so there's no food, and when you're out of food, you're simply out of food. So there's no free food, there's no health care, and you're making less than $1 a day, and what you do is you make woven baskets all day, and you're lucky if you can sell at least one. And then you might have asthma, and the nearest hospital is probably about an hour a day. So there's so many decisions you have to make, so many really, really hard decisions. So the first thing you got to do is you got to go look for a job. But the other thing is you can't get a job because you need an education. You can't go to school either because an education costs money. So you have no money to go to school, and you can't get a job without an education. So what do? Well, I guess you do whatever you have to do to survive. You steal, you prostitute your body, or whatever you do, or you just simply die. So you literally, I mean, I cannot imagine having to live that way. So I cannot to live the way these people live. So just thinking of that experience, can you imagine everyone living on less than $1 a day? Having no food, no medicine, and you don't get Thanksgiving turkey like we get here. There's no stimulus checks, there's no free money, there's no transportation. You're walking, you probably you're probably wearing raggedy clothes. You don't have decent clothes to wear. Your children might need health care. Maybe they're crippled. You'll be lucky if you're able to get them a cane. And you have to make so many difficult decisions that your family, one of your children or your members of your family might die, and you just have so many things you got to do, and you can't do them all. And so what is left is you got to pray to God that if there are missionaries there to help you, I don't think I would be able to survive in a country like that. I don't think most American people could survive if you had to live on less than $1 a day. So there's talk about privilege. Yes, we are privileged. It's not just white privilege. We're all privileged, regardless of who we are, whether we be a minority, whether we be black, whether we be brown. We are all privileged. We have food. We have the highest standard of living in the world, while the rest of the world lives in extreme poverty. Could you imagine just having to live that way, not being able to feed your family, not being able to get decent medical care? You would be getting down on your knees, literally praying to God if you had to live that way. So again, I think it is very important that we need to start thanking God for all the wonderful things that He has done. Thanking God that you live in this country, and despite the country's challenges, I'm not complaining. And despite some of the things that I'm going through right now and going through each day, I don't think I'd want to be anywhere else except America. I would rather be here. I'm not complaining. Despite how imperfect our country is, I would not want to be living in a country where you're making less than $1 a day and not being able to feed yourself and not being able to have medical care. I wouldn't even survive in that kind of environment. I'd be probably dead in a week. Could most Americans imagine just living like that? What would that be like if you couldn't feed yourself? You couldn't feed yourself. You couldn't get decent medical care. You couldn't get a job. You couldn't go to school. What would you do? How would you survive? So it is important that we all need to be very, very thankful of what we have right now. We need to get down on our knees. We need to stop all the fighting, and we all need to come together, and we need to become Americans. And yes, we need to be very, very thankful of all the advantages and the privileges that we have by living in this great country. I don't think anybody would want to live anywhere else except America. And I just want to be thankful for the Thanksgiving holiday, and I want to be also be thankful. I just heard from my friend James Carter. He has had a very successful surgery. Thankful that we have great health care like we have here, where people like my friend can get great health care, he can get surgery, and he doesn't have to live in pain. And that's one of the things I'm thankful for: good health care. I'm thankful for food. I'm thankful for decent shelter. I couldn't be any more thankful than having what I have right now. I'm thankful for the roof that I have right now. I'm thankful that I have a bed to sleep in. I mean, what else could I'm thankful for? I'm thankful for this cup of coffee that I have. I'm thankful for a phone. I'm thankful for a computer. I'm thankful for people who care. I think there's so many things that we need to be thankful for, and we all need to stop complaining, and we need to get down on our knees, and we need to be thanking God, and we need to be coming back to the Bible. Because, dear Lord, I would not imagine wanting to be having an experience like most people in other countries where they live on less than $1 a day. I just don't know how anybody could live that way. I mean, there are people who live that way. They're used to it. They're accustomed. They survive, but I just cannot imagine how they do it. I know I couldn't personally do it, but I just think it's if anybody out there experienced something like that, it would be a sure huge wake up call. You see a lot of less our confrontation, a lot of less riots, and a lot of less fighting. People have to understand, are we privileged in America? Absolutely. We all are privileged, regardless of the color of our skin. We're privileged to live in this great, wonderful country that we live in, where we get food, we get great food, we get good health care, we have jobs that we can work at, we have transportation, we have modern systems of rail and all other wonderful things that we have, and money. So we live in the wealthiest country in the world. I cannot imagine living in a country where you have living in extreme poverty. And yeah, we have pockets of poverty in this country. We have people that are poor, but the people here are much more wealthier here than they would be living in another country. I cannot imagine just having to sit and weave baskets for 10 to 12 hours a day, and then being able to sell maybe just one a day at a quarter. I can never imagine living like that. So I just want to pray again and just say, despite my challenges and despite how things might be going, I have to get down on my knees, and I have to be very thankful to God, and I got to be thankful for the things that I have, and I have to I'm not complaining personally, and I just hope that others that are out there that are feeling angry because there's injustices in the world. I mean, yeah, there's injustices because America is an imperfect place, but I can tell you right now, I would never want to live in a country where you have no rights, and you have no food, no health care, and no place to live. I just cannot imagine how anybody can live that way. But I just want to, all I want to say is I just would like to wish everybody out there a very good Thanksgiving. And I just want to give everyone the opportunity to think about this very important message that I'm trying to send to everybody. And just be thankful for what you have. Be thankful of the advantages that you have in this country. And yes, we all are privileged in a way. For we have a lot of advantages that we have that most people around the world don't have. There's a lot of people that are starving in their countries. They have no food to eat, and look what we have. We have the highest standard of living in the world. and none of us are happy. We're all just standing around and complaining. But I'm not complaining. I would say if you had to live in something like that, I think you probably change your tune really quick. I think it's a very interesting learning experience. So that's just kind of what I wanted to say, and I just want to wish my friend James Carter a very happy Thanksgiving. And I want to wish all of you out there and all you people on A Voice Crying in the Wilderness, I want you to be very thankful for what you have. And for those who have families or those without families, I just hope everyone has some place to go this Thanksgiving. And regardless of who you're seeing and what you have, just be very thankful for what you have, and just be thankful that you don't have to live in a country that where you have no food and no health care. So just continue to praise God and remain in His Word. And hopefully I'll be back. Maybe I'll have a Christmas message in the next few weeks. So again, this is Steve from suburban Chicago, and this is A Voice Crying in the Wilderness, and I'll talk to you soon.